And the reality is I really enjoy building. Building's a great game. And building's a great game because you get to do stuff with your hands and you get to be creative. And when I think about building, I think of, I spent 6 years as a trade tutor. And what my job was is to get young guys that had not done well at school. They didn't go to school, they actually were smoking dope and staying home most of the time. So, doing well is probably a political term. They were dropouts of school. They weren't there, the school didn't want them, and they had no future. And what we did as a trust, we got those young guys along, we put a tool belt around them and we went and did proper building. So I'm not talking bird cages, we built houses and sheds and barns. But the biggest thing we did for those young guys is we said, you have value, you have purpose, you are useful in society. And 95% of those young guys went on and did well in work. And I've met some of them. Some of them actually went in the Apprentice of the Year competition, some of them sold cars, some did carpet laying, but they actually got hope and it made a difference in their lives. And we really believe as the New Conservative, we need to change what we're doing in our education system. Because our education system is failing too many young people. And the education system is the government's very best tool to reduce crime. Because if you can keep young people involved in education, you can keep them out of crime. And so what we need to do is diversify a little bit in our education. We need to have trade training schools. And we envisage them starting at about year 9, which is sort of form 3 for those of us who are a bit older. And the idea of a trade training school is we say to young people who are creative, who love using their hands, we need you. You're important. What you do is important. How about you try your hand at a whole lot of different trades and see if one of them really smokes your tyres? And we let them experience it and enjoy it, and we teach them their numeracy, their math, their literacy. We teach it through the trade. Because tradies, they're a reasonably basic breed in some ways. We like to get paid. But to get paid, you've got to submit an invoice. When you submit an invoice, if you don't do it right, you lose money. So it's very simple math to say, I need to work out what it's cost me, I need to put on a margin, and I need to charge more than that if I'm going to make money and I can afford McDonald's tomorrow. So we can easily teach the basics of numeracy and literacy through the trade simply by getting guys involved. But once they're involved and motivated, they'll learn all that stuff. And it's not just guys, it's girls and guys, but it's kinesthetic learners. It's providing an option for them. And that's actually part of our justice policy. Because there's no isolated thing in New Zealand. Everything interlinks and everything ties in and everything affects everything else. And so the education is the key part of stopping kids getting into crime. And another part of keeping kids out of crime is those that do get involved in crime, because you're not going to stop all of them. Those that do get involved in crime, those that are in the real hard cases, we believe in youth farms. And it's not where we farm them, it's not like a glass house where we sort of feed them CO2 and hope for the best. It's where we take those young people and we remove them out of the environment they're in. Because the biggest thing for them is they're stuck in this environment, they're stuck in this rut where they don't see a way out. And what they do is what they continue to do, and they continue to get the same result. So you remove them out of that environment and you put them somewhere totally different. You put them in an environment where they're responsible for their bedroom, they're responsible to grow veggies, they're responsible for animals, they learn agriculture, horticulture, viviculture, they do some tree planting, they learn empathy. And they're outside of that caustic environment and in a healthy environment for a whole year. And what you've done then is you've provided them the best opportunity they'll get to break the cycle. And it will work, but not for all of them. But it'll work for a lot, and it's worth a go. So we would do that. We'd be in youth farms to try and intervene and get those really hard case kids out of the environment. Unfortunately, some people are still going to get involved in crime. And we know that's true. That's just life. There's some people that just make some really, really bad decisions. So for those people, when they're incarcerated, we are suggesting a 3-stage sentencing program. And it looks like this. The first stage is the offender must engage in work whilst in prison. And so they must engage, whether it's in the cleaning or in the kitchens or whatever, they must engage because that shows that they're willing to learn and willing to do something differently. Once they're engaged in a work program, then the next thing is they get their own individual education program. A lot of guys in prison are suffering from fetal alcohol syndrome or drug abuse. They are not going to get a degree in anything. But if we can give them basic numeracy and literacy, they've got a much better chance of surviving once they get out of prison. So they have an education program and they have to complete it before they go to stage 3. And the reason we do that is it's giving them personal responsibility. They have to make choices. They have to make decisions. They have to be disciplined. And those are fantastic skills if you're going to succeed in life. Once they have finished their education program, they go to stage 3. And stage 3 is done a little bit in New Zealand at the moment, but it's work to release. So these guys are working outside of the prison during the day and they're in the prison at night. And maybe as they get further along, they might be out for a weekend with their family. But the idea of this is they're rubbing shoulders with people that aren't incarcerated. They're rubbing shoulders with people that are going home to their families. They're mixing and mingling with people that have a normal lifestyle, what we consider a normal lifestyle. And they're learning the skills that when they actually get released out of prison, it's not a whole foreign world they're going to. Because an issue we have at the moment for offenders, especially those who have been incarcerated for a long time, is when they're released into a foreign world. They've been dropped off on Mars. They have no idea how to survive, and they basically go straight back into what they were in before they got incarcerated, back into drugs, back into alcohol abuse, and they get locked up again. But it's partly our fault, because we haven't equipped them. We haven't given them the tools and the skills to survive outside. So that's our justice program. It's a pretty all-encompassing one, but it actually makes sense. And if you've been to prisons and visited people in prisons, you can see the sense it'll make. And you say, well, what can prisoners do for work? I'm glad you asked. Who asked that? They can have a chocolate. It was me. Does anyone else want to ask that question? I'll let you have a chocolate. There you go. It brings us to another point of what we've been talking about something else recently, which is a product called 1080, which I don't think there's too much in chocolate. There could be, I don't know. 1080 is a really great topic to talk about because it's so polarising. It doesn't matter what you say, you upset someone. So I can probably upset all of you, really. I'll have a go. Some people see 1080 as the saviour of New Zealand. It kills the rats and the mice and the stoats and the possums and the ferrets. It's cheap, it's easy to apply, it's the most fantastic thing if we're going to save our native birds. It's wonderful. Other people disagree. Other people think 1080 is a noxious poison that kills absolutely everything, and it does it in a very vile way. It is an inhumane, cruel killer that is destroying the life of our bush, from the insects to the birds to the mammals. You can't harvest the meat, you can't reuse the skins, it destroys everything. And we use 80% of this poison, 80% of the poison of 1080 made in the world, we use right here in New Zealand. It doesn't dissolve, it just simply dilutes. So we've got two totally opposing views here. What do we do? Oh, we put our head in the sand or beg for mercy or... No. What is the issue? The issue is we want to get rid of the predators and the rodents. We believe 1080 is our most cost-effective method, and it probably is the most cost-effective method. So we come up with another method. It might cost us more, but actually we don't have to use 1080. And that method actually already exists. I spoke with a guy probably 5 weeks ago who spent 12 years developing a system that will rid New Zealand of rodents and predators. He didn't develop the actual traps, but he's done testing with it, and Doc have done testing with it. And I would have the documents here if I hadn't left my folder at a previous meeting today. Sorry. But I've got documents that Doc have done the testing on it, and these traps eliminate rats down to zero within about a month or 6 weeks. Incredible. It's going to be labour intensive, it's going to be hard work, but by using the traps we don't have to use poison. By using the traps we can use the skins, we can reuse the meat. It's quick, it's humane, there's no buy-kill, we don't have to worry about destroying our insects, we don't have to worry about our native birds eating the dead animals, we don't have to worry about our dogs. So we can do things totally different. We can be predator-free in New Zealand without using poisons. Isn't that worth having a crack at? Yeah. And guess what? If I was a prisoner, I would much rather be wandering through the bush setting traps than I would sitting in a cell in Paramarimu. And I think there's a lot of guys like that. There's a lot of young guys that would love to get out there and do a bit of hunting. You know, young unemployed guys, what a great way to get some skills. So we can use what is a problem as an asset for us in New Zealand by thinking a bit creatively. These traps we're proposing, they're actually used in 20 countries around the world. They're just not used in New Zealand much. It's a bit sad really, isn't it? Built in New Zealand by Kiwi guys who want us to use them, but we don't. And I don't know why. I don't know where the blockage is, but it's something we need to address because we don't need more poison in New Zealand.
Are these the gas-operated traps?
Yep, gas-operated, good nature. There you go. There you go. Thanks for asking. Have a chocolate. Yeah. Good nature traps. So it's that sort of creative thinking that we want to get in New Zealand. It's that sort of problem solving that we need in New Zealand. And it's that sort of problem solving we can do in New Zealand.